Hey everyone, so it's me, Ben, or GNC Centric. Today I'm going to talk about kind of my journey into the kink community online, as a trans teen. So just want to say before I start this video, I don't think that teens are capable or should be involved in any BDSM or kinky relationships. They're just not developed enough to have the skills to cope and handle and navigate that. So I know like a lot of these things I made a choice to do them, but I felt like that was what was normal. And also I was a child, so when I make a choice and an adult makes a choice to engage with me in like a sexual way online, they're the one who's taking advantage of a child. Yeah. Anyway, so as I mentioned in some of my other videos, I started reading gay romance novels when I was like 13, as a kind of escapism. And before that, I had been into a lot of like sci-fi and fantasy, like Dragonlance and Mech Warrior and stuff like that. And so I was already reading like adult books, so going to like adult romance books didn't seem like weird to me. And I read some heterosexual romance books, and they were like so disturbing to me, like the power imbalances and stuff. It just freaked me out. Then I started reading gay romance, and felt like much better to me. Also, with my aversion to my own anatomy, gay romance was perfect because there was no females involved, but it was gay, so it fit into like the LGBT thing. So yeah, it started with like normal romancy novels, um, and like adventure books, and then later turned into like some really creepy, disgusting shit. So by the time I was like 16, I think, I started reading these books. I went through my old Goodreads account. I'm just going to be brutally honest, and I'm going to tell you what some of the topics of the books were. So for some, I'm going to start with the least tame stuff. There was triads, where there was like one dom and two subs, and they lived together all the time. There was some books about houseboys, which are like, usually it's like an older gay guy with money who has like a younger gay guy who was like broke before, who like lives in his house and is like a maid and like a sex slave, kind of. I read some books about like full-time master-slave relationships, which are like so fucked up. And then like the worst ones I ever read were like like one of the main characters is like a sub who'd been like abused or raped or something, and then like learning to enjoy being in a dom sub relationship again after that. Those were like the most disturbing. So in these books, there's the idea that if you feel unsure of what you want and you want to please somebody, that makes you a sub, like a submissive. And that was totally me. Like, even before all this, as like a small child, I imagined that, not small, but like at like 12 years old, 13 years old, I imagined that like I would one day have a boyfriend who would like instruct me on what to do sexually, because I had no idea what the fuck to do with my body, who would instruct me how to make him happy, and that would make me happy, and that was it. That's what I wanted. I wanted to just be told what to do. So then when I found this stuff, that was like perfect. I was like, somebody will tell me what to do. I want to please somebody. They'll use me to please themselves, and that's will make me happy. That's perfect. There's like this whole concept too of like identity and like being born a sub, or having the personality of a sub or a dom. So I really got into that. And then, so this was all like in reading stuff. Then in my online life, I had, as I mentioned in my other videos, there was a lot of like sex workers that I followed who were like trans activists online, and a lot of them posted stuff on Twitter and Tumblr. Like, I would see GIFs and videos and pictures all the time of people in like bondage, and like furries. And in this sex positive community, you're not taught to question or analyze anything. You're just supposed to say yes to everything and don't shame anyone. Like, they don't want to be a kink shamer. But, like, the daddy dom little girl kinks are, like, so fucking disgusting. Like, they literally, they want the child to dress up and act like a child, and the person to act like their literal father and have sex with them. Is so disturbing. And a lot of the people in these relationships are actually abused. And, like, they're just trauma bonding all the time with their dom. Anyway, so you're taught not to question these things. So I would see, like, all the time, like, something I would see often, like, on Twitter is, like, collar ceremonies. So, like, when a sub officially, like, dedicates themselves to their master or their dom, they get, like, a collar to, like, symbolize that they're, like, the servant, or that they, like, are the property of their master. And then, like, humiliation stuff. So, like, if a sub somehow disappointed or disobeyed their master, they would, like, make their sub do something, like, disgusting and take pictures of it, like, licking their shoes, and they would, like, take pictures of it and put it online and, like, get everyone to like it and repost it. That's, like, a really tame stuff. Some of the stuff is, like, way more sexual and, you know, abusive. Yeah, so I would see this stuff online, like, on Twitter and Tumblr all the time, so it became, like, a normal part of my life. Like, people, there's this term consensual non-consent, which is when you, like, role play rape. And so it's, like, before you agreed that everything is fine, so during, like, the scene, if you say no, it doesn't matter anymore, like, because you agreed before. So there's, like, all this really creepy shit, and I don't know, I was taught not to question it. Despite being, like, against rape culture in, like, my feminist stuff on Twitter. So eventually all of this led me to think that I was a sub bottom. And I just want to specify, at this time in my life I identified as a gay trans man, which meant I wanted to be male, I identified as male, and I was attracted to males. At least I thought I was. What I really, now I look back, I think I just wanted, like, male attention and validation, and like I said, I wanted to be, like, bossed around, and, like, that's who it seemed like I should be doing it with. And, like, I totally romanticized the idea of gay male relationships, because, like I said, it didn't involve any female anatomy, and I was disgusted with my female anatomy. So when I was 17, I joined FetLife. I posted some pictures on there. It was really obvious that I wasn't, I think the website is 18 or 19. It was really obvious that I wasn't that. And especially because dressed as a boy, like, this is a really common thing with trans men. Like, you could be, like, an 18-year-old and dressed as a boy, you look like a 12-year-old. So I look like a 12-year-old. And, like, I got a lot of attention, like, from people who specifically were looking for young people, obviously. And then also attention from tranny chasers, people who, like, have a fetish for trans people specifically. And on there, like, I saw the consensual non-consent stuff, and I saw some, like, subs talking to each other about, like, how they feel when their masters, like, disregard their safe words and stuff, and it was, like, really obviously these people were just being raped all the time, and that they were taught that that was, like, how their master loves them or whatever, so they're not supposed to question it. And I would look at this, like, descriptions of rape, and people, like, telling them, like, it's not bad, and then I would, like, look at Twitter, and it would be like, these are what is rape culture, it's, like, victim blaming and stuff. And I was like, it's literally the fucking same thing, and it's, like, they're both being promoted by, like, feminists. So, like, the cognitive dissonance was going. But before all that, I almost arranged a meeting with a guy in my city, but I didn't do it, thank God. So I identified as a sub for, like, a year. I had, like, this really thick, like, leather bracelet, black leather bracelet that I wore all the time. It was, like, part of my, like, identity. Also, part of what like, drew me to it was, so I knew some, like, people who, like me, were gay trans men, but they had, like, gone on T and, had, like, double mastectomies and stuff. And they were on, like, Twitter, they were on Grindr and stuff, and, like, the only people who would want to hook up with them are, like, really strict tops, which often or sometimes strict tops are also doms. So, like, there's a lot of gay strict top doms on FetLife, and that's like perfect for me because like I didn't have a penis, right? So these people, they're the kind of people that like they don't care and they don't want to see it, and they don't give a shit because it's all about them. And for me, that was like fucking perfect because I just wanted to be like used and make someone happy, right? So I thought like, oh, I can be gay, but like me not having a penis isn't like a problem then. But yeah, like I said, the FetLife stuff got more and more, like the more I read and the more I got involved, the more like disturbed I was by it. So I ended up leaving. But while I was still on there, I was tweeting about some of the stuff I was seeing, like asking questions. And then somebody that I was already friends with, they they like started tweeting me back and like explaining stuff. And then he started DMing me, and he turns out he had been like in the kink community, like gone to like sex clubs and sex parties and stuff, um, like when he was younger. So this guy, he was in his late 30s and he was ex-military, and at this point I was 17. And we started talking, and he would just explain to me like, if somebody wants you to sign a contract, don't do that. If people try and like disregard your safe words or like debate your boundaries, he's like, don't let them do that. If you tell somebody that something triggers you and they don't listen to you, he's like, immediately don't stay with them. He he like had so many experiences of knowing people who were like continuously abused in the kink community, but nobody did anything. Like the predators were protected, so he like cautioned me against that. Um, but eventually, like I developed a crush on him. He had like a really cool sports car, and he was into comic books and like the same movies as me, and we would discuss that stuff all the time. And like I had like a fantasy that like we would sit on like the hood of his Mustang, eating ice cream, talking about comic books, and like making out or whatever. Um, yeah, so I had like a crush on him. So I asked him to be my dom, and he was like, "Oh yeah, sure." So what ended up happening was like we would sext like almost every day, and um, as I mentioned before, I didn't actually feel sexual arousal until I was 18. So this was pretty close to that. So like I would sext, but just like actually texting, like without doing anything to myself. And then like I'm just gonna be brutally honest. So I went off of my antidepressants for like 2 weeks when I was 18, and that's when I first felt sexual arousal, and it was while I was sexting with him. And looking back now, like I know I'm not attracted to men, but because it was all through text, my fantasy of pleasing him, I think, is what really like that was what like aroused me. So I got aroused. I tried masturbating. Like he was the one who explained to me like what is a clitoris, like what are the different like things people do, like women do when they're masturbating. He explained to me like I couldn't figure out how to orgasm for like 6 months or something, and he like he gave me like a bunch of different techniques of like how to relax my body and stuff like that. Like he was very instrumental in my sexual development. He was protecting me from doing anything in real life. Um, but it was still, I mean, it's strange, like a late 30s and 17-year-old. Um, anyway, so with him, I finally actually started like sexting and doing stuff to myself, and it's like still I couldn't get off. And also like me doing stuff to myself like made it more and more obvious that like I was a woman and he was a man, and he really was heterosexual, I think. So I don't know, it kind of invalidated some of my fantasy. Um yeah. There was something else I was gonna say about him. I totally forgot what it was. Oh yeah. He's the person that when I ripped my hymen and I had nobody to talk to, he was the person who I talked to. He was kind of a surrogate parent for me, to be honest. Like I was having so much trouble with school and so much trouble with my family and so much trouble with my mental health, and he was there to talk me through stuff and to support me. And so he was kind of a surrogate parent in a way. Like, he would tell me, like, do your homework now, we can sex later, and I'd be like, okay. Like, that's how I structured my life. Like, he became, like, in charge of me. Um, and honestly, like, having somebody telling me what to do all the time, like, actually helped me relax a bit, because, like, looking back now, it's so obvious. That's just how I grew up. My parents were, like, micromanaged us, like, everything, and they were, like, such control freaks about everything we did. Like, my executive dysfunction and stuff is, like, worse because they never let us, like, make our own plans or do our own things when we were small children. um yeah, so it felt completely, like, relaxing to me to have somebody tell me what to do all the time. Like, I didn't have to make choices for myself, um which is, like, so unhealthy. But yeah, so he was kind of a parent figure at the same time as being, like, the one who was introducing me to, like, my my sexuality. It was, in retrospect, very strange, but it could have been a lot worse. um Really quick, I just want to talk about, in real life, I knew quite a lot of, like, LGBT trans queer youths who were into kink stuff. So for most of them it was, like, I think kind of like a game. Like, they just basically had vanilla sex and they would, like, have some dirty speak or whatever, or, like, have, so, like, one or two props or something. But I did know at one point a 14-year-old who was, like, a trans man, so a female, who was in a relationship with, I think, like, a 24-year-old trans woman, so a male. And that was really messed up. And they disclosed to me, like, sometimes the stuff they do makes me feel, like, disgusting and ashamed, and sometimes they do stuff to me I don't like, but I just let them do it because I want them to be happy. And, like, they told me all this horrible stuff, and I was like, why are you in this relationship? And it was so clear that this trans man, like, completely idolized their dom, and, like, they did everything in their life was structured around pleasing their dom. So, like, there's nothing I could say to make that person leave that relationship, but I just told them, like, you deserve to be safe and you deserve to feel better, and they kind of didn't believe me. Like, this is how they expected to be treated. um and, like, nobody questioned it, which was so fucking disturbing. That's the most disturbing part of all this, is that when it happens, when teenagers get involved in kink relationships with adults in the queer trans community, nobody questions it, um, which is the most disturbing thing to me. So I just wanted to say, I think sex positivity is kind of harmful. I mean, you should question and analyze everything you do before you do it, especially with something as personal as sex. Yeah. So, as always, leave your questions and ideas for videos in the comments, and I'll leave my social media in the description. You can hit me up anytime on Twitter. Thanks for watching my video.